The apology letter was an unspoken agreement between Chandler Goodwin and me. Every time we fought, I had to handwrite one as an olive branch. The first time I wrote an apology letter, tears and snot drenched my face. On one hand, I kept berating myself for humbling myself to this point for a man's sake. On the other hand, I just couldn't stop my hand from moving across the page. After all, being given the silent treatment was just too tormenting. Eventually, there was a third time, a ninth time, a 17th time. It was like a vicious cycle. In fact, on the way to the company, I had even been thinking, was my handwriting neat enough? Was my attitude sincere enough? Chandler will probably stop being angry once he reads this, right? Yet now, seeing the genuine warmth and affection in his eyes as he stared at his assistant, I only felt a chill sweep through my entire body. As it turned out, it wasn't that he didn't understand what the silent treatment meant, it was just that I'd never been someone he was willing to coax. While Chandler was busy with a meeting, I took the opportunity to meet with his assistant. After ordering our coffees, I carefully scrutinized the woman across from me. She wasn't as pretty as I was, perhaps just a bit above average, and judging from her slender figure, she probably didn't have a habit of going to the gym. Status-wise, I was a match for Chandler, while she was merely an intern. No matter if it was her looks, figure, or status, she was in no way comparable to me. And yet, I had still lost to her. During the past 3 years that I was married to Chandler, we had had countless fights that led to the silent treatment. Even so, he had never once been the one to try to reconcile with me first. I had assumed he was just that cold and indifferent by nature, that he was the same to everyone. It was only today that I discovered that wasn't the truth. He was entirely capable of smiling with such doting affection. He didn't like the feeling of being ignored, and he knew that he had to set aside his pride to make a woman happy. I just couldn't understand where had I gone wrong? Why had I lost? How badly had I lost? That was the reason I invited Amanda Silton, his assistant, out today. I wanted answers. Amanda hadn't expected that I would ask her such a question. The nervousness at being caught by her lover's wife abruptly turned to bewilderment. Is that all you wanted to know? Crumpling the apology letter in my hand, I stuffed it into my bag. Then, leveling a serious gaze on Amanda, I replied sincerely, "Yes, that's all I want to know. Can you tell me in what way I have lost?" Amanda laughed at first, but when she realized that I was serious, the amusement on her face gradually changed to a pitying look. Taking a sip of her coffee, she showed me the Van Cleef and Arpels bracelet on her wrist. Last month, Mr. Goodwin brought me along to a cocktail party. I didn't like the strong scent of alcohol wafting off him and complained a little. The next day, I found this bracelet on my workstation. I paused in surprise. There was indeed a day last month when Chandler had imbibed quite a bit of alcohol, as when he returned home, his face had been completely red. I was incredibly allergic to alcohol and would get rashes all over me with even a whiff of it, so I had voluntarily offered to sleep in the guest bedroom. That touched a nerve, and Chandler gave me the cold shoulder for an entire week straight. Then, there's this hair clip. Amanda unclasped the crystal hair clip on the back of her head. The Balenciaga diamonds embedded in them sparkled dazzlingly under the light. Due to having to meet a client, Mr. Goodwin caused me to work 3 minutes overtime. He bought me this when he went to Farenga for a work trip. Feeling a little dazed, I nodded. My birthday had actually been a few days before Chandler's business trip to Farenga. 1 week before that, I had specifically reminded him to buy me a present. Besides that, 3 days before my birthday, I had even told him to set an alarm to wish me a happy birthday. Yet, he had still forgotten. In fact, when I confronted him about it, he had instantly exploded and spat out, "You know full well that I'm busy with work." With that, he had stormed off coldly with his luggage for his business trip. Furious at him, I had given him the silent treatment for 2 whole weeks. During the days when neither of us wanted to back down first, he had somehow still remembered to buy Amanda a hair clip. The urge to laugh rose in me, yet my eyes were growing wet. "Anything else?" I asked. Amanda eyed me oddly, perhaps wondering why I was torturing myself so. "Well, your fight with Mr. Goodwin this time? You might be unaware, but the dress shirt you ruined was actually a gift for me too. Mr. Goodwin. He had promised me to wear it." When meeting his client, realization dawned on me when I heard that. I had been wondering why one destroyed dress shirt had been serious enough for him to move out. Memories of last night flashed through my mind, of how I had been wiping away my tears while earnestly writing the apology letter. "Chandler, I know I was wrong. Next time, I'll be even more careful when doing the housework. I'll definitely do it well." I'll buy you the same dress shirt, so please stop being mad at me, okay? Thinking back on it now, I found it all utterly hilarious. No longer in the mood, I dipped my head at Amanda in a nod before leaving. I now knew just how badly I had lost. At the same time, I finally decided just how my marriage to Chandler would end. The fight this time was the perfect fuse. After leaving the coffee shop, I headed straight to a law firm where I paid extra to customize a divorce agreement. While waiting for the lawyer, I happened to run into Chandler. It seemed like there was a problem with the company's legal team, so he was here to discuss a business collaboration. Upon seeing me, Chandler instantly frowned. "Have you come to corner me here?" He seemed to automatically assume that I was here to apologize, his gaze flicking to my bag. "I don't have time to read your letter right now. Once I'm done with my work dash, Ms. Lane, it's your turn." At that moment, Adam Chance, the lawyer I was meeting, popped his head out of his office to beckon me inside. I stood up, only for Chandler to grab my arm. "You're here for a lawyer?" When I didn't answer, Chandler released his grip on me and said flippantly, "You actually made an appointment with a lawyer just so you could coincidentally run into me? Fine. Since you went through all that effort, let's have dinner together." I knew this was a sign that he wanted to reconcile. If this had been in the past, my eyes would have instantly lit up as I nodded vigorously. However, this time, I decided I would play the fool. Pasting a smile on my face, I politely replied, "I'm busy tonight. Maybe next time." The next time we sat down to have a meal together, it would likely be to discuss the divorce. Not wanting to waste another second on Chandler, I stepped around him to enter Adam's office, leaving him rooted to the spot in shock. What a great feeling that was. By the time I finished consulting with Adam and left his office, it was already dark outside. Chandler hadn't waited for me. When I asked the receptionist about it, she told me that he had left immediately after, finishing his business collaboration talk, as though he had been worried about someone pestering him. I was fully aware that that someone was referring to me. After all, this wasn't the first time he had publicly humiliated me like this. Nonetheless, this was the first time I didn't feel upset about it. I headed to a shopping mall next, where I bought a bunch of clothes that I liked. After that, I went to a florist and bought myself a bouquet of fresh flowers. Finally, I dined at a barbecue restaurant that I had been dying to go to. Chandler had a sensitive nose, so he couldn't stand the smell of greasy smoke and spices clinging to clothing after eating barbecue. Hence, he had always forbidden me from having that. The last time I had barbecue was last year. At the time, Chandler and I had had a falling out due to a small matter, and we had been giving each other the cold shoulder for 3 days. By that point in our marriage, I had already been mostly used to it, but that day was supposed to be our wedding anniversary. As revenge, I deliberately visited a barbecue restaurant. After that, I went home practically smelling like a piece of barbecued meat myself. Subsequently, we had a huge fight. With a frosty look on his face, he had said, "You clearly know I hate that smell, yet you still insist on doing what would piss me off. Why?" My eyes had been puffy and red from my crying as I retorted, "Well, you clearly know today's our wedding anniversary, yet you still insist on giving me the cold shoulder. Why would you do that? Why can't you just placate me and make me happy?" I couldn't remember what expression had been on his face after I said that, but the bone-deep chill I felt at the time was something I would never forget. Even now, I couldn't stop a shiver from running through me when I recalled that sensation. Regardless, that was all in the past now. Stabbing a huge piece of brisket, I stuffed it into my mouth with relish. By the time I arrived home, it was already quite late at night. After dealing with my nightly routine, I was about to sleep when I received a message from Chandler. "Have you seen my green tie? I need it tomorrow." In the 3 years we were married, this was the first time he had ever taken the initiative to send me a message while we were on the outs with each other. Hence, I was stunned for several seconds, even wondering if this might be a prank. It wasn't until I had reread the message several times and confirmed that it was indeed real that I slowly typed out my response. "It's on the 3rd shelf of the glass cabinet in the wardrobe. Do I need to ask someone to take it to you?" Previously, no matter where Chandler was, as long as he needed it, I would be the first to jump into action. However, it was different now. It was already close to midnight, and I needed to get my beauty sleep. There was no reply from him for a good long while after I sent my message. Just as I set down my phone and got ready to sleep, it beeped. "Tomorrow is our wedding anniversary. What would you like? A necklace?" I paused in surprise, as that was the wish I had made last year. It had come one entire year later. When Chandler didn't receive a response, he sent another text. Did you come to the company today? There's nothing going on between Mandy and me, so don't bother her. The instant I read those words, understanding dawned on me. He had sought me out to defend his mistress. And here I had been wondering why he would suddenly remember to get me a present. As it turned out, he was worried I would cause trouble for his precious lover. A laugh bubbled out of me, and I sent Chandler a voice message in a tone that was tinged with both self-mockery and resignation. Don't worry, I won't do anything. Because I had already made up my mind to leave him. I checked the time, only to see that it was midnight. It wouldn't be convenient to have him come back now. Hence, after some thought, I said, Chandler, stop staying at the hotel and come back home tomorrow night. I have an agreement that needs your signature. The next day, I woke up bright and early to start packing my belongings. At first, I thought about making dinner, but after a moment of consideration, I decided against it. Chandler had never liked my cooking. If he were to see a table full of dishes I cooked, he would likely grow unhappy again. With a grin on my face, I swiftly ordered some takeout. Soon, it was 6 p.m., yet Chandler still hadn't replied to my message. I accepted the takeout the food delivery driver handed me, then gave him an extra tip to help me take out the trash. There wasn't much, mostly just the apology letters I had written over the years. I had dug them out from the table drawer of Chandler's study, where he had kept them all. By 7 p.m., Chandler still hadn't returned home. Not at all anxious or bothered by that, I decided to eat by myself since I was hungry. While scrolling through my phone, I happened upon Amanda's social media post. My period came, and I'm having such terrible cramps. Thankfully, Mr. Goodwin offered to take me home. When was the last time my period came? It was probably the 17th. Due to the severe discomfort, I had taken some painkillers and fallen asleep, resulting in my missing Chandler's call. He had blocked my number without any hesitation, only unblocking me a few days ago. I could still remember him saying, Jennifer Lane, it's just your period. It's not like it'll kill you. Of course, having my period wouldn't kill me, but his chilly indifference had indeed made me feel like I was dead inside. Yawning, I lazily tapped on the like button. Immediately, my phone vibrated with a message from Chandler, who had sent me a question mark. Instead of replying to his message, I continued with my meal. 10 minutes later, the sound of a key turning in the lock rang out from the front door before. Chandler strode in aggressively. Upon seeing the leftovers from my takeout order, he paused in his steps. Did you not cook? I instinctively touched the scar that had been left on my hand from a previous cooking incident. I thought you didn't like my cooking. Frustration and annoyance flashed in Chandler's eyes as he was rendered speechless at my retort. Nonetheless, he would never show me his true feelings. He shoved a jewelry box at me. Your anniversary gift. Have a look. I took the box from him and glanced inside. As I expected, it was the long-overdue necklace. Thanks. I thanked him politely. There was another flash of emotion in Chandler's eyes, as though he couldn't understand why I was being so courteous. Then his gaze darkened as he said, I didn't mean to be late. There was an emergency at work, and I came rushing back as soon as I could. I only sent her home because it was on the way. Don't get jealous over nothing. I nodded, replying, It's fine. I don't mind. I genuinely didn't care, but that seemed to frustrate Chandler, who asked in a slightly aggrieved tone, Then, why didn't you get me a gift? The moment he finished speaking, even he appeared surprised by himself, for this wasn't befitting of his character. Nevertheless, he had always been a proud man, especially when it came to interacting with me. Hence, barely a few seconds had passed when his expression darkened. Throwing me one last cold glare, he turned to leave. I knew this meant he was going to start yet another round of silent treatment. Hold it. I stopped him. Then I lowered my head and began searching through the drawers for the divorce agreement. Chandler turned his head, revealing the small smirk curling his lips. He came up behind me and asked, What are you looking for? My gift? Found it. I lifted my head, unable to hide the excitement in my voice. I had a lawyer write up a divorce agreement. Go ahead and sign it. Chandler snatched the divorce papers from me, the bold black words at the top of the agreement causing his eyes to widen. Following that, his gaze snapped to my face, as though he wanted to search for a clue, anything to show that I was joking or simply doing this due to a moment of impulsive anger. However, I merely gazed back at him calmly, the way one would stare at a stranger. Seconds later, he recovered his composure and regained his usual arrogant demeanor. With a scoff, he tossed the papers back at me. As though he was certain I couldn't leave him, he said in a tone brimming with mockery, "What's the meaning of this? Jennifer, is this seriously the game you want to play? Okay, fine. I'll sign it. Just don't come crying and begging on your knees for me to take you back." Not bothering to give that a reply, I simply headed to the table and turned on my laptop. The details had already been hashed out with rows upon rows of legal terms like a cold verdict. Turning the screen toward him, I stated flatly, "Take a look and see if there's anything that needs to be edited. The segregation of assets and company shares has all been written out clearly." Chandler was stunned, probably not expecting that I would be that determined. It was a stark contrast to how meek I had acted in the past, when I would beg him for forgiveness. He was a selfish man to the core who only ever thought of himself. In these circumstances, Chandler should have immediately gotten involved in discussing the divorce details so he could ensure he gained the most benefits from it. However, in that moment, he actually started to panic. He opened his mouth, but no words left his lips. Just then, his phone rang, the lit screen showing the name Amanda. For once, Chandler glanced at me to gauge my mood. In the past, he had never cared about my feelings when he had to take a call at home. This was the first time I had ever seen this reaction. In the end, though, he still answered his phone. My lips quirked up in a sneer as I watched him from the corner of my eye. After accepting the call, he said calmly, "Amanda, what is it?" "I'm at home handling something." "All right. Once I'm done, I'll head over." The phone call barely lasted a few seconds, but when he hung up, his expression had changed completely. When he looked at me again, the earlier impatience and scorn had disappeared, instead replaced by disbelief. Stepping closer to me, he reached out to take my hand and attempted to reason with me. "Stop throwing a tantrum, will you? I admit I was a little harsh on you just now, but you should know that I've been feeling quite pressured at work lately. Don't just bring up divorce on a whim." While his tone was noticeably gentler, it still carried that sense of superiority. I gently extracted my hand from his grip. "Are you done looking through the agreement? If you have no objections, let's decide on a time to head to the courthouse." The smile on his face froze as he finally realized I wasn't doing this out of anger, nor was it a test of some sort. I was genuinely determined to end this marriage. Panic flickered in his eyes, and he uttered in an even more anxious tone, "Is this just because of Amanda? There really is nothing going on between us. If you don't like her, I can cut off all ties with her, I swear." "Are you really going to give up on us after so many years, just like that? Don't forget that you aren't exactly young anymore. So, is there any meaning to all this fuss?" In response, I merely closed my laptop and stood up. Outside the windows, the sky was gradually darkening. This house, the couch, and everything here, they would soon all be a thing of the past. "This has nothing to do with Amanda." Staring him straight in the eye, I continued clearly, "From the first time you stayed out overnight, from when you completely forgot about my birthday, to the instant you took everything I did for granted, that was the moment our relationship ended. What I'm doing today is simply making it official. The sooner we get it over with, the happier everyone will be." Chandler was rooted to the spot, his complexion deathly pale. He opened his mouth as though to say something, but I had already turned to start packing up my personal documents and clothes. Opening the closet, I picked out only the clothes that I often wore and stuffed them into my suitcase. As for all the jewelry he had ever given me for our various anniversaries, I didn't take a single one. Those shiny things that I had once begged desperately for now only hurt my eyes. When Chandler realized that I was serious about leaving, he abruptly exploded with fury. "You're an adult, aren't you? Can you not be so impulsive? You bring up divorce without any warning, yet you claim this isn't due to a fit of anger? Can't we just sit down and talk it out?" I zipped up my suitcase, not a hint of emotion crossing my face. What's there to talk about? About how you used my resources to expand your connections, all while being intimate with your assistant at your office. Or should we be talking about how you paraded around in front of me while wearing the clothes Amanda bought you? Chandler Goodwin, the time for talk between us is long over. I seem to have struck a nerve, as he went pale before flushing red. In the past, he would always easily tide things over by saying a few sweet words or being more forceful. However, he was coming to realize that all those methods were failing today. He tried to block my path by holding his arm out, but I deftly avoided him. I've already sent the divorce agreement to my lawyer, Mr. Chance. You can go and discuss the details with him. When it comes to the assets, you can keep this house, but I want what's rightfully mine. Behind me, Chandler hurled insults before demanding that I stop this nonsense and saying that if I were to change my mind and apologize to him now, he would forgive me. I remained completely unfazed at his words. Once upon a time, his forgiveness might have been something I cared deeply about, but not anymore. I already expected that it wouldn't be so easy to get Chandler to sign the divorce agreement. After all, in his eyes, this had happened too suddenly. Several days later, Chandler wanted me to go to his office. However, he had Amanda call me about it instead of doing it himself. Since I thought he wanted to talk about the divorce, I paid no mind to this peculiarity. Yet, when I pushed open the thick glass door to his office, the first thing that greeted me was a document being thrown onto the table, followed by a terrifyingly grim voice asking, "What's the meaning of this?" The divorce agreement was badly crinkled, as though it had been gripped with significant force. Immediately, I understood that he had been waiting for me to apologize for the past 2 days. He had expected that I would come to him with an apology letter and plead for his forgiveness, just like how I had in the past, yet I hadn't done anything like that at all. I shot him a calm look, as composed as could be. It's exactly what it says. I already made myself very clear the other day. We should have ended things between us a long time ago. Jennifer, do you have to be like this? Smacking the table, he leaped to his feet. I'm telling you right now, we're not getting a divorce. You'd better take this divorce agreement away right now. Don't do such a humiliating thing again. I couldn't stop the burst of laughter that left my lips. Humiliating? What's more humiliating, you strutting around in front of me with Amanda and forgetting all about important dates like my birthday and our anniversaries, or getting a divorce? His expression instantly turned stony. Don't bring all that up. Those aren't important here. Those weren't important? If my birthday and our anniversaries weren't important, then what was? His words stabbed deep into my heart like daggers. Throughout our years of marriage, Chandler had set rule after rule. I wasn't allowed to seek him out during working hours, nor was I allowed to act affectionately with him in front of our colleagues. In fact, even going into his office to see him could only be done after obtaining his permission. I used to care about him, so to not upset him, I had carefully obeyed every rule he forced upon me. It was only later that I discovered how much of a joke all this was. Ever since Amanda was hired, she had the perfect excuse of her job responsibilities to enter Chandler's office as she pleased. She could hug his arm in public and enjoy special privileges that I had never gotten. Since you're so eager to cut off all ties with me, then what's the point of keeping you in the company? Chandler was threatening me, but I simply found the entire thing hilarious. His threats held no power over me, as I had no intention of staying wherever he was. Taking out the resignation letter I had prepared beforehand, I placed it down on his desk gently. Chandler didn't like me being a housewife, so he had gotten me an easy job at his company. However, other than him and Amanda, no one else knew my true identity. In an instant, Chandler saw red. Grabbing the resignation letter, he ripped it to pieces and snarled, "Who said you could resign?" How was it I had never realized he was such a temperamental man? I spun on my heel to leave, only for him to seize my wrist tightly. He was exerting quite a bit of force, and pain lanced up my arm. "Let go," I ordered coldly.
No.
"Do you think you can get rid of me that easily? In your dreams." Our loud argument had attracted our co-workers' attention. Through the glass walls, I could see them whispering to each other. Among them was Amanda, a faint hint of amusement curling her lips as though she were watching a good show. Chandler Goodwin, if you don't let me go right this moment, I'm calling the police. I did my best to remain calm. However, my words only served to thoroughly infuriate him. Yanking me toward him, he practically growled through gritted teeth. You dare? Without my consent, you won't get to resign, nor will you get to divorce me. My response was to forcefully shake off his hand. Jennifer Lane. Stop right there, he bellowed from behind me. If you dare walk out that door, then you can forget about divorcing me for the rest of your life. I didn't even look back. Heading to my workstation, I began packing up my belongings, all the while ignoring how my colleagues were avoiding my gaze. I knew what they were thinking. It was common for the wife to tear into the mistress, but to resign and humiliate the CEO in front of the entire company? I was the first. Upon stepping out of the company building, I had to squint my eyes at the bright sunlight. With the divorce filing documents weighing down my bag, I headed straight for the courthouse. Since Chandler refused to sign the agreement, it was time to bring the case to court. This marriage had been a mistake from the very beginning. What Chandler needed was a docile, understanding, and obedient little puppet that would do all his bidding. I, on the other hand, was a living, breathing person. Now, the puppet had escaped its strings, but the puppet master was still madly trying to pull it back. Just then, my phone vibrated with an incoming call from Chandler. I switched off my phone, then plucked out the SIM card and tossed it into the trash. From this day on, Jennifer Lane was starting a new life. After leaving the company, I checked myself into a nearby hotel, thereby officially beginning my new life alone. Chandler adamantly refused to divorce, so I had no choice but to take the matter to court. To prepare for the case, I quickly made an appointment with Adam. He had always been very kind to me, and upon hearing my predicament, he promised to do his best to gather the required materials. However, less than half a day after we finished discussing the details, he suddenly called me in a hurry. His tone was filled with helplessness as he told me, "I'm sorry, but Chandler Goodwin personally met with me. He said that if I were to continue helping you with your case, my law firm would be in deep trouble." My heart sank at his words. I was all too familiar with Chandler's methods. He had always been the relentless sort who wouldn't give up until he achieved what he wanted. Even though I was the one who brought up the divorce, he was clearly unwilling to let me go, just like that. As for the division of assets, he was even less willing to make any concessions. "It's fine, Mr. Chance. I understand," I said gently. I didn't want to put him in a difficult position. After hanging up, I began contacting other law firms. However, what I never expected was that, even after making over 20 calls over the next few days and heading to every law firm in the city, they would all react the same. At first, they would be quite warm when asking about the details of the case. Yet, the moment they heard the name Chandler Goodwin, there was an instant change in their attitudes as they refused to take on my case. Finally, a younger lawyer sneakily told me the truth. "Mr. Goodwin has informed all the law firms in the city that if anyone dares to take on your case, that would mean making an enemy out of him." Standing on the street with my phone clutched in my hand, I suddenly found the city, which I had stayed in for years, cold and unfamiliar. When I thought about it, this situation was actually quite ironic. During our university years, I had better grades than Chandler. However, I had spent the last few years bending over backwards to please him, resulting in my neglecting my job. Thus, he was now the company's CEO, while I had lost touch with the working environment. Being unable to find a job now was, in a way, my own fault. It had been my own choice that led to this development, and since I was reluctant to return home and ask my parents for help, I could only bear the consequences alone. For the next 2 months, I stayed in the apartment my parents had gifted me before my marriage. During the day, I would head out for interviews, while at night I would edit my resume. Sometimes, I would pass by the neighborhood where Chandler and I had bought a house. Whenever that happened, I would always increase my pace, not wanting to be reminded of those memories that were somewhat beautiful, yet also heartbreaking. One rainy afternoon, I received an unexpected phone call. "Ms. Lane, this is Corey Souther. I heard you were looking for a job," a deep and steady voice asked from the other end of the line. Corey Souther was Chandler's biggest business rival, so to say I was shocked and wary at his call was an understatement. How to have my contact number? This circle is quite small. With a soft laugh, he added, more importantly, I heard you're taking Chandler to court for a divorce. His words instantly sent alarm bells ringing in my mind. Although he was supposed to be Chandler's nemesis because of my ties to Chandler, I hadn't exactly been friendly toward him in the past, either. Hence, I couldn't help but be hesitant when he extended an olive branch to me. Nonetheless, I agreed to his invitation in the end as this was my only chance. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe. Corey was different from what I had imagined. He wasn't feeling smug glee at my predicament, nor was he demanding and aggressive. Instead, there was almost an air of quiet wisdom around him, which made me feel at ease when interacting with him. He bluntly stated that he would offer me a job, but in return, he hoped that I could provide him with some intel on Chandler's business happenings. I'm not a spy. I immediately refused. I admire your principles. He didn't seem particularly surprised by my attitude. Then, let's change the terms. You just need to focus on doing a good job at work. As for your divorce with Chandler, I'll ensure you get a fair verdict. Why would you help me? I asked. Letting out a laugh, Corey replied, since you chose to divorce Chandler, that must mean that you're thoroughly disappointed with him. In that case, that places you and me on the same side. I fell into a thoughtful silence. After mulling over it for a while, I decided to accept his offer. Life after starting my new job was good. Ever since I left Chandler and that dull life behind, I suddenly found my days to be incredibly meaningful. Unfortunately, life didn't always like to play by the rules. Just when I thought I had finally seen the light at the end of the tunnel, that I had finally found my rhythm again in the workplace, fate once again pushed me toward a crossroad. That day, I had just finished an important project meeting and was about to discuss our next move with my colleague when a familiar number flashed on my phone screen. Upon seeing that it was Chandler, I couldn't stop a tremor from running through my fingers. Regardless, I headed toward the break room before answering the call. Just like before, his familiar voice carried quite a bit of displeasure and urgency as he demanded, Jennifer Lane, have you gone nuts? Don't you know that Corey Souther is my business rival? Why are you working at his company? What does this have to do with you? I could sense the frustration and anxiety in his voice, but that wouldn't shake my resolve. Chandler, I'm no longer the same Jennifer who needs to rely on you and is obedient to your every word. I've found my own worth and meaning to life after starting work here at Corey's company. That's very important to me. For a good while, nothing but silence came from the other end. It lasted so long that I thought the call had disconnected. When he finally spoke again, his tone had noticeably softened. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I know I was wrong about what happened in the past. I've already cut all ties with Amanda, so could you give me another chance? Let's not divorce, okay? My heart twinged with pain as memories of all those lonely nights resurfaced in my mind. Some wounds can never be healed, Chandler. It's all your fault that things between us ended up like this today. Let's just go our separate ways. Ending the call, I took a deep breath. The scenery outside the break room windows was of the city's busiest area. Among the bustling crowds and endless vehicles, I thought I saw my past self, a woman who had lost herself during her marriage. However, that was all water under the bridge now. 3 days later, Chandler sent me another message in the evening, saying that he would agree to the divorce, but only if we met face-to-face to discuss several details. My instincts told me that this was a trap, but I also knew that we had to get the divorce over and done with sooner rather than later. Hence, after giving it some thought, I called Corey. Are you sure you want me to go with you? Corey asked, his voice steady as always. Yeah. Chandler and Corey were enemies, so if there was one thing that would cause Chandler to completely forego all pretense, that was seeing the man he hated. I added firmly, I want him to know that I'm no longer the same Jennifer who will dance to his every tune. With that, Corey agreed to my request. We arranged to meet at a high-end restaurant's private room. Chandler arrived earlier, clad in a bespoke suit that cut a striking figure. When he spotted Corey coming in with me, his expression visibly stiffened. Why did you bring him here? Are you deliberately trying to piss me off? He snarked. Corey leisurely pulled out a chair for me before moving to sit beside me. I'm merely here today as Jennifer's colleague. You two can go ahead and talk. Chandler's eyes darted between us, finally settling on my face. Jennifer, are you really able to let go of our relationship just like that? After all these years? Staring him straight in the eyes, I answered, a relationship requires both parties to nurture it. From the moment you chose to betray me, you should have expected that this day would come. He took out a folder from his briefcase and slid it toward me. I assumed it was the divorce agreement, so I opened it up only to see a job application form. I hope you can reconsider. As long as you're willing to come back, my company will always welcome you. Be it your job position or salary, it's all negotiable. Mr. Goodwin, are you trying to poach my employee right here in front of me? Corey sneered. The way Corey and I played off each other caused Chandler's expression to darken. You and Corey Dash, Mr. Souther and I are simply superior and subordinate, nothing more. I interrupted Chandler. Don't just assume that everyone is as shameless as you are. Seizing the moment, Corey stood up. Since you're not showing any sincerity at all, Mr. Goodwin, we'll be taking our leave. Jennifer still has an important meeting tomorrow. By the way, just to let you know, you'll likely receive a court summons regarding the divorce within a week. I'll do everything in my power to help my employee win this court case. Corey had purposely emphasized the words "my employee," probably to tick off Chandler. Unsurprisingly, Chandler fell for it. When leaving the restaurant, I could feel his gaze burning holes into my back. However, this time I didn't look back. The chilly night breeze stung my cheeks slightly, but it only made me feel even more clear-headed. Are you okay? Corey asked gently. I nodded, throwing him a relieved smile. I've never been better. Due to Chandler's stubborn refusal to cooperate, the court case for our divorce proceeded half a month later. It was only on that day that I learned Chandler had truly broken up with Amanda. Supposedly, he had been the one to initiate the breakup. I thought back to when I first sought out Amanda to ask about Chandler. The triumphant and smug look in her eyes then had me thinking that she was likely someone special to him. However, it turned out that a callous person would always treat everyone the same. The verdict for our case came swiftly. As the party entirely at fault in the relationship, Chandler would gain no upper hand in this. Thus, most of the assets were allocated to me. Naturally, this was also largely in part due to Corey's influence, as he had hired a team of top lawyers to fight for me. Outside the courthouse, I thanked Corey with a smile, yet he waved it off. He said that since he had failed to overthrow Chandler in the business industry, causing Chandler some losses was better than nothing. I bowed my head and laughed lightly, not knowing just how much of an eyesore this sight would be to Chandler. Are you still unwilling to forgive me? Chandler tried one last time. Mr. Goodwin, I believe I've already made myself very clear. Besides, we're already divorced. Then, when will you be coming home to take your things? He asked. With a faint smile curving my lips, I shook my head and told him that I didn't want them anymore. Everything from my past, that house, those clothes, Chandler, I no longer wanted any of them. Clear heartbreak shone in Chandler's eyes as he finally said, whether you believe it or not, I do love you truly. I simply shot him a glance. The love that he spoke of sounded entirely foreign to me. During this time away from him, I had been doing well at Corey's company, and I had seen more than a few couples, both married and not. It was only then that I realized that a healthy relationship wasn't one where the scales were tipped completely to one side, with one party giving the other everything or blindly doing everything they could to please the other. A healthy relationship was one where both parties truly gave each other their hearts, where they genuinely cared for and loved each other. Unfortunately, Chandler didn't understand such a simple truth. Corey stood not far off, waiting for me. Once I got closer to him, he questioned, Is everything over now? Nodding, I replied, Yes, it's all over now. From this day on, I would never need to receive the silent treatment from someone else again.